All right, now that we have the geometry laid out for our widening, our turnout, let's attach that geometry, that horizontal geometry, as a reference and add it into the corridor. So far, at this point, we've modeled the corridor and added a little example here of a parametric constraint, which is useful for doing linear transitions. But for nonlinear transitions that require something like we did with the geometry on the turnout with the reverse curves, you have to use a point control. And point controls can be taking a template point on the corridor and it's attaching it to an independent alignment that can be controlled either horizontally or being a vertical control or a horizontal and vertical control. So let's first thing we need to uh, basically allow the corridor to see that by just referencing that. So we're going to go to references and attach reference. And depending on where you have your geometry, basically you're going to go in and find that. I created it, this was it here, the control turnout, and I'm just going to attach that and close this. So now you could see that turnout that I have there that was created earlier. We just want to be able to see that. And then we're going to just add that now as a point control. And now we're going to go to the corridor and to the flyout, to the tools, and go to the point controls. Create point control. Just like parametric constraints, point controls are very, very similar as was done in inroads. It's just taking a particular template point and assigning a separate control line to it. So all the information that was added in the inroads side, if you're familiar with that, is also on this dialog here and appears in the heads up prompts. So the start station, and remember what we did is we had created a short offset here, and the alignment actually starts here at the reverse curve. So that was at 1950. So we're going to say the start of the control is going to be 1950 and accept that. And the end of the control is going to be 2250, where it ties back in. Lock that in there. And then the description, we'll just leave the description. It's a turnout left, lane 2. And of course you could change that however you want. I'm going to accept that. Locate the point that you're going to control. And in this case, I'm going to jump over into the cross section here. And we want to control this point here because you have to identify which point you want to control. We're going to go ahead and pick that point. And that's the lane 2 left. Of course, you could pick it from the drop down as well. It's a little bit easier when you're looking at a section and you can kind of see what point it is. It is just a horizontal, although there are other methods, horizontal, vertical, and or both. So this is just going to be a horizontal control. And it's just using the linear geometry that we created. There are a few other options in here using something that's identified by a particular feature definition or is created by a earlier corridor that could be used for a control, which is something that could be done if you do an intersection design. It's likely you're using a corridor feature, but in this case we're doing linear geometry. And we're going to accept that and then locate the element, and that's going to be this the alignment here that we have attached. We're going to go ahead and pick that, and you can see that it pulled that alignment. And to use it as a secondary alignment, yes, that means it's going to change the modeling the perpendicularity at that location. It's something that typically you want to do. Um, and say yes on that. Priority 1, this is the only thing occurring in this area, but if there were layers of control, they can be prioritized. And we say 1 on that. And the horizontal offset start is 0, and the stop is 0. We're not changing the offset location. It's going to be actually on the geometry that we created. And you can see that it's now modeling along that. And let's escape out of here. So now you could see that it's now modeling that. If you look in the 3D here, you see that it's showing that new modeling, and this is where it's now modeling perpendicular as a secondary alignment, perpendicular around that curvature of the sidewalk added. And if we look in cross section, you'll see that it's widened there, and you'll see this purple box, which is an indicator that there's a point control on that point. Now, going into the corridor, tools, and then the corridor objects, be able to see that point control added here with the relevant information. If something needed to change, or if you needed to turn it on or off, you can do that here. So this is, again, very similar to the inroads if you're familiar with that, but this is also an area to be for editing purposes.